It was exactly 6 a.m. when the email hit Adrian Cole's inbox. Subject line: Urgent HAR escalation. Employee issue at store number 112. He didn't even finish his first sip of coffee before the red-flagged message stopped him cold. Cashier ID 4125, Keira Monroe. Multiple complaints. Falling asleep at the register. Customers say she seems off and unprofessional. Manager suspects substance abuse. Immediate termination advised. Attached were snippets of complaints from customers. She looked spaced out, barely responded when I said hello. She moved like a zombie and forgot my receipt. Adrian rubbed his forehead, blinking at the screen. Was this serious? Or another overreaction? He clicked deeper into the incident reports. But the more he read, the more one thing became clear. There was no mention of theft, no rudeness, no insubordination. Just exhaustion. Severe exhaustion. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. Store number 112 was in Southbridge, a rough neighborhood with high turnover, but also one of the top-performing locations in customer retention. He'd personally walked that store when it opened 5 years ago. Haven Mart wasn't built on speed or flash. It was built on respect for customers, for employees, for communities society often ignored. So why would one of their youngest cashiers be unraveling like this? And why the rush to get rid of her? He grabbed his phone and called his assistant, Emma. Clear my schedule. For the day. For the week. What's going on? I'm going undercover. Again? Yeah. Something here doesn't smell right. Adrian closed the laptop, heart heavy, mind racing. A teenage cashier. Sluggish. Pale. Silent. No drama, no theft, just drifting. What makes a 19-year-old girl so exhausted she can barely stand upright? By Wednesday, Adrian had a name tag. Adam. Inventory team. The uniform felt foreign, cheap navy blue polo, stiff khakis, steel toe shoes that pinched his feet. But the moment he stepped inside store number 112, he felt something else. Pressure. Tension. Fatigue in the air like humidity. The store wasn't fancy, but it was spotless. And then he saw her. Register 3. Keira Monroe. Her eyes were rimmed with shadows. Her frame looked thin under the uniform. But her posture was straight, her tone polite. Hi there. Do you have your rewards card today? Thanks so much. You have a lovely day. She said it with a softness that didn't match her appearance. Adrian watched. She never rushed customers. She double-bagged groceries for the elderly. She offered tissues to a crying child. But something strange kept happening. Every time a customer turned away, Keira's hand drifted to her stomach. She pressed it gently, not like pain, more like hunger. At noon, he noticed the shift change. Most employees grabbed snacks or headed for the staff kitchen. Keira? She stayed behind her register. Just sat. No food, no drink, no phone. Only silence in her eyes, staring far away. 30 minutes later, a mother with a toddler stood in her line. The boy whimpered and reached for a bag of animal crackers on the impulse shelf. No, baby, we can't, the mother said, checking her small pile of dollar bills. The boy started to cry. Adrian saw Keira glance around. Then, wordlessly, she picked up the bag, scanned it, and slipped it quietly into the woman's grocery bag. Her eyes never met the mother's crust. She just whispered, "It's on sale today. No charge." By the end of day 1, Adrian had filled 2 entire shelves of canned soup, but his eyes had rarely left register 3. Keira moved slowly, yes, but not carelessly. She never snapped at a customer, never rolled her eyes, never showed frustration, and yet every time the line grew longer, something shifted. Adrian began noticing the whispers. Not from customers, from employees. She's sleeping on the job again. She's gonna get canned this week. I swear. I saw her nod off at the register. The words weren't cruel, just cold, distant, dismissive, as if everyone had already decided who Keira was. He saw how they glanced at her when her back was turned, not with malice, just indifference, like she didn't matter. But Adrian saw things they didn't. He saw how her hands trembled slightly when scanning large items. He saw how she quietly offered to bag groceries for a pregnant woman, even when it wasn't required. And he saw something else. Every time she thought no one was watching, she touched her stomach. Not in pain but in hunger. It was instinctive, a reflex. At 4:30 p.m., the staff break rotation began. Keira took her 15-minute break, but instead of heading to the break room, she walked toward the back hallway. Adrian followed discreetly, pretending to tidy shelves. She sat down against a stack of delivery crates, not scrolling her phone, not eating, just staring. After 10 minutes, she pulled out an old smartphone, typed a few words, then put it away. Later that night, as Adrian left the store, he noticed something else. Employees were heading to their cars, chatting about dinner. Keira didn't join them. She walked, not to a nearby bus stop but deeper into the neighborhood, past liquor stores, cracked sidewalks, streetlights that flickered. No ride, no friends. Just her walking alone into a rough part of the city, with shoulders slightly hunched like she was bracing for impact. Adrian watched from across the street. He didn't know where she was going, but something told him. He had just watched someone return to a life that was eating her alive. Day 2 was worse. Keira looked even paler. Her steps were slower, and once Adrian saw her grip the edge of the register as if to steady herself. By mid-afternoon, the store was calm. The usual lull after the lunch rush. Adrian was restocking cereal when he heard the crash. A loud thump from the front end. He turned, heart pounding. Keira was on the ground. She'd collapsed behind her register, her arms trembling as she tried to push herself up. Groceries scattered across the floor. Customers gasped. Rick Patterson stormed out from the back office, his face a mixture of irritation and vindication. "Oh, for God's sake," he muttered. "Again?" He knelt beside her, half concerned, half annoyed. "What did I tell you, Monroe? If you can't handle your shift, don't come in at all." "I'm fine," Keira whispered, voice barely audible. "I just got a little dizzy. I skipped breakfast." "You've been just fine for 3 weeks." Rick snapped. "Corporate's breathing down my neck because of your mess. You're done." Adrian stepped forward instinctively. "She just needs water. Maybe a few minutes to rest." Rick spun toward him. "And you are?" "Just helping," Adrian replied carefully. "Then help her pack up," Rick said, "because she's out of here tomorrow." "No." He turned back to Keira, lowering his voice. But Adrian still heard every word. "Start saying your goodbyes. I'm filing the final report first thing in the morning." Rick walked away without looking back. Adrian helped Keira up, guiding her to the break room. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't look him in the eye. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know how this looks. I'm not lazy. I just—" She trailed off. Adrian knelt down so they were eye level. "When did you last eat?" She hesitated. "Yesterday morning. I gave the kids the rest of the dinner." Adrian's heart twisted. He handed her a bottle of water from the fridge. She sipped slowly, cheeks flushed with shame. "I'll be okay," she said. "Please don't let him fire me. I just need this job. I just need to keep it a little longer." She looked up, her voice barely more than a breath. "If I lose this, I lose everything." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Keira's words in his head. "If I lose this, I lose everything." Not, "I lose my job." Not, "I'll be in trouble." But everything. There was more to this than exhaustion. More than hunger. More than a bad manager trying to clear a name off a schedule. Adrian needed the truth. The next morning, before clocking in, he made a call. "Emma," he said, voice low, "I need you to pull an employee file for me." "Which one?" "Keira Monroe. Store number 112. Is this about the HR flag?" "It's deeper than that." 20 minutes later, his phone buzzed. A file opened, and with it, so did the story. Keira Monroe. Ninathan. Employed since age 17. No prior write-ups. Perfect attendance for over a year. Then, everything changed 6 months ago. Late arrivals. Tired notes from supervisors. Declined employee meals. Skipped breaks. One detail hit like a punch to the chest. Emergency contact. Blank. Legal guardian of 3 minors. Zara Monroe, Malik Monroe, Jerome Monroe. Ages 10, 8, and 5. Adrian froze. She wasn't just tired. She was raising 3 children. Alone. He sat at the edge of the backroom bench, phone still glowing in his palm. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Why she never ate. Why she never complained. Why she gave away food, but refused to accept it herself. This wasn't burnout. This was survival, and he knew whatever Rick Patterson thought he understood. He didn't know a damn thing. Adrian stood up. From this moment forward, he wouldn't just observe. He would watch closer. And quietly, he would protect her. The next morning, Adrian walked into store number 112 with his mind set. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was hunting for answers. He texted Emma again. Check the source of the anonymous HR complaint about Keira Monroe. I want the IP. The email. Everything. But she responded in under an hour. You're not going to like this, she wrote. The complaint came from Rick Patterson's personal email. Adrian stared at the message. For a long time, so that's what this was. Rick hadn't just been documenting incidents. He'd been fabricating them, creating a paper trail, writing her out of the system, one false note at a time. Why? To save budget? To cut hours? To get rid of a problem employee without dirtying his own hands? Or maybe, worst of all, because she was easy to blame. Young, poor, alone. No one would question him. Adrian's jaw clenched. He had seen this before. People like Rick didn't yell. They didn't scream or threaten. They used paperwork. They buried people under policies. They weaponized the system against the most vulnerable. And unless someone stopped them, it kept working. Adrian didn't say a word. Not yet. He walked past Rick, who was bragging to another supervisor about how he'd finally have Monroe gone by tomorrow. Adrian pretended not to hear, but inside, something had changed. He wasn't just going to protect Keira. He was going to expose the entire truth. That night, before leaving the store, Adrian sent one final text. Prep a full conference room at HQ. I'm making this public. And Emma, get HR and legal in the loop. I'm taking Rick Patterson down. Thursday morning came quietly. Store number 112 opened like any other day. Lights on. Doors unlocked. Rick Patterson smiling like he already won. Adrian showed up early. He restocked shelves, checked inventory, blended in. But inside, he was planning every move. That afternoon, he made the first call. Margaret, he said, I need you to join me at store 112 tomorrow morning. Bring a legal rep. We'll be meeting on site. Free. Margaret Chin, HR director, had worked with Adrian for 12 years. She didn't ask questions. Understood. I'll be there. The next call went to Emma. Has the room been prepared? Yes. Legal, HR, comms all confirmed. Good. I'm blowing this wide open. Then he made one final stop. The break room. Keira sat at the far end, knees drawn up, holding a cup of water in both hands like it was the only thing grounding her. Adrian approached quietly. He sat beside her, carefully. You're not fired, he said. She didn't look at him at first. I heard Rick talking to the assistant manager, she whispered. He said I'm done. I'm just waiting for security to show up. He won't touch you, Adrian said firmly. Not today. Not ever again. Keira turned to him, confused. Why are you helping me? She asked. You don't even know me. Adrian hesitated, then said the only thing he could. Because someone needs to, and no one else is stepping up. Mode. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Keira spoke, almost to herself. I used to dream about having a normal life. Not rich. Just. Stable. Quiet. A job I could count on. A fridge that wasn't empty. No one yelling at me for things I didn't do. Adrian didn't interrupt. He just listened. And in that moment, he didn't see a tired employee. He saw a leader who hadn't been given a chance to lead. Tomorrow, he would reveal everything. But today? Today he let her sit, knowing for the first time, she wasn't alone. That evening, Adrian didn't go home. He parked across the street from the same cracked apartment complex he'd followed Keira to days earlier. The light in her unit was on. Through the thin curtains, he could make out shadow small ones. Kids. Laughing. Moving. He watched for a while. Then drove off, heart heavy with what was coming tomorrow. But inside that apartment, Keira was unraveling. She sat at the tiny kitchen table, a notebook open in front of her, pen gripped tight in her hand. Numbers filled the page, crossed out, rewritten, reorganized. Rent, $650. Utilities, $95. Food, $180. Malik's inhaler, 40. School supplies, $35. Total, $1,000. What I have, $921. Difference, minus $79. She pressed her fingers to her temples. That wasn't even counting the social worker visit on Monday. They were coming to check the apartment. Again. Any sign of instability, missed rent, no food in the fridge, kids showing up late to school, and she could lose everything. Everything. The last time they visited, the caseworker had said, "You're doing your best, Miss Monroe, but it's tight, real tight. One more issue and she knew what that meant. They'd separate the kids, put Zara with one family, Malik with another, Jerome, God knows where. They wouldn't survive it. She wouldn't survive it." Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her neighbor, watching the kids while she worked the night shift at the nursing home. "Malik's coughing again. I gave him the inhaler. He's asking if you'll be home before bedtime." Keira blinked back tears. She had 2 hours before she had to be back at work. Another 8-hour night shift. Then breakfast, then school drop-off, then back to Haven Mart. No sleep, no relief, no plan, just that notebook, mocking her. A breath, then two. She reached for a piece of duct tape and stuck the notebook closed. She looked toward the door, toward the shoes lined up for the morning. Then she whispered to herself, barely audible, "I just need one more week. Just one. And I won't let them take my family." Friday, 9:03 a.m. Adrian stood quietly by the back exit of store number 112. He was wearing the same navy polo and name tag that read, Adam. But everything about him had changed. Today, he wasn't pretending. Today, he was done hiding. Across the store, Rick Patterson was pacing, clipboard in hand, eyes darting toward the front entrance. He knew Keira's termination papers were signed. All that was left was HR's approval and security to escort her out. And then, the door opened. Margaret Chin stepped in, HR director. Right behind her, a woman in a business suit from legal. Adrian stepped forward to greet them. Rick's jaw slackened. "What's going on?" Rick asked, instantly tense. Adrian turned to face the break room and called out, calmly, "Keira, could you join us for a moment?" She emerged, hesitant, pale, hands wringing together. Rick started speaking fast. "Look, we don't need the whole legal team for this. I've documented everything. She's been late, falling asleep, scaring customers." Adrian raised a hand. "Stop." Rick blinked. "Excuse me?" Adrian stepped forward and took off the name tag. "My name isn't Adam," he said quietly. "It's Adrian Cole, CEO of Haven Mart." The break room fell dead silent. Rick's mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. "Wait. You're the CEO?" "For the past week, I've been working here undercover," Adrian said. "I've seen everything, heard everything. And Rick, I traced the anonymous complaint myself." He held up a folder. "The email came from your personal account." Rick went pale. "Now, I have a few things to say," Adrian continued, "to the entire staff." "How?" He turned to the gathered employees. "I want every person in this store to hear this clearly. Keira Monroe is not being terminated. In fact, she's being promoted. Effective immediately." Murmurs rippled through the room. Rick's voice cracked. "You can't do that." "I just did." Adrian turned to security standing by the door. "Escort Rick Patterson from this property. Effective now, he is no longer employed by Haven Mart." Rick stood frozen, clipboard trembling in his hand. Security stepped forward. "Wait, this is insane. You're making a mistake." "No," Adrian replied. "The mistake was letting someone like you stay in charge for this long." And just like that, Rick Patterson was gone. The break room emptied slowly. Most employees returned to their stations in quiet awe. Adrian stayed behind with Keira, Margaret from HR, and the legal rep. Keira still looked stunned. "I don't understand," she said softly. I'm not qualified for a promotion." "Well, you're wrong." Adrian replied gently. You've done more with less than most executives I know. You managed 3 lives on a cashier's paycheck. And you did it with grace. He turned to Margaret. We're creating a new position, community anchor. Someone who understands our customers because they live in the same neighborhoods. Starting salary, $52,000 a year. Full benefits, flexible schedule, and housing assistance. Keira blinked. I don't know what to say. Oh, you don't have to say anything, Adrian said. Just accept what you've already earned. He stood up, offered a small envelope. Inside was a key. This is to the store. You're now part of management. Which means if you ever need to grab groceries after hours for your family, you have my full permission. Keira's hands trembled as she took it. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't believe this is real. Adrian smiled. It's real. Because you made it real. Oh. www. 2 days later, social services showed up for their scheduled visit. But this time, the apartment was different. The fridge was full. The rent had been paid. The school attendance log was clean. Zara proudly showed the caseworker her bookshelf. Malik coughed once, but waved his new inhaler like a trophy. Jerome offered them juice boxes. And Keira? She stood straight, confident. The caseworker closed her clipboard, smiling. No further visits required. You're doing an exceptional job, Miss Monroe. For the first time in a long, long while, Keira didn't cry when they left. She smiled. Because she wasn't surviving anymore. She was living. A month passed. Keira now wore a name tag that read, Keira Monroe, Community Anchor. Her uniform had changed. But more than that, she had changed. She walked with her shoulders higher, her eyes brighter. There was still exhaustion, sure, but it no longer came from despair. It came from purpose. Customers greeted her by name. New hires looked to her for guidance. Managers from other stores asked for her input. And every time she walked past the register where she used to stand for 8 hours straight, she smiled, not out of pride, but because she'd made it. Not alone, but with dignity intact. Adrian visited once more quietly. He stayed only 10 minutes. Watched her greet a single mom with coupons. Watched her let a boy with holes in his sneakers grab a sandwich for free. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there, hand on his hip, eyes soft. Then he nodded once, and left without a word. That night, Keira sat by the window of her now fully stocked apartment. Zara slept on the couch. Malik and Jerome were curled up near the space heater, safe and warm. Keira wrote something in her notebook, not numbers this time. Just 5 words. You don't have to break. Then she closed the notebook and looked out at the city lights. She knew tomorrow might be hard. Life didn't magically become easy. But now she had something she hadn't had in a long, long time. Choice. She had a choice. And that was everything. Sometimes, the strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who keep going when no one sees. So if you're in the dark right now, keep walking. Someone out there sees you. And maybe, just maybe, they're already on their way. What would you have done if you were in Adrian's position or in Keira's shoes? This wasn't just a story about a promotion. It was a story about dignity, about quiet strength, about fighting for the people no one notices until they fall. If something in this story moved you, I'd love to hear it. Tell me in the comments below. What part hit you hardest? Was it the notebook, the false report, the final smile? And if you're someone who's ever felt invisible, just know this. You matter, you are seen, and you are not alone. Thank you for watching. Hit like if this story touched you, and subscribe if you believe more stories like this need to be told. I'll see you in the next one.